Is that all I got to do?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Addict-to-Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Deal Jr., coming to you live here from Kerrville, Texas, where last week at this time, we were getting hit with baseball-sized hail. And, God has a really funny way of working out in his timing. And that's about what today's episode is going to be about, faith in the wait and embracing God's timing. He has such a good sense of humor, God does. I was praying for months, since I got out of prison to get my job back. And sure enough, I get hit with the biggest hailstorm in less than 3 weeks on the job. And it's like, he just got a funny way of doing it like that. But one thing I did want to discuss were some announcements before we get started. We're kind of struggling in the studio today, guys. We had a death in the family. I want to say that Sensei was like our studio mascot. He was a full-blown lab, and he was always under my feet. Y'all never saw him, but he basically family to us, and he was only a year and a half old, and he passed away just a few days ago. And so we're kind of struggling. And I told Ada, that we could cancel the show, today if we had to. But she wanted to continue doing God's work. And she said, hopefully maybe something that God uses me to talk about tonight will not only help somebody out there listening, help myself. Maybe I might need to hear it, but maybe Ada would need to hear it too. So please pray for her and her loss. She's struggling, and I just want to ask that everybody check out Ada. She's going to be pulling up some of her information here in a minute. So please follow her on her YouTube channel. Support her, send her prayers and love. She's really needs it this week, guys. And her banner is going to be down here at the bottom. And just wanted to make sure that we do say prayers for her, because she means a lot. And this podcast wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for her and her sponsoring the studio and letting us use it. So she means a lot to me. She's basically family. And please pray for her and our loss here at the studio. Again, it was Sensei, and yeah, it's not the same being in here without him. And so please pray for her. And we got some other announcements to make. One of the announcements I want to make is my barber Rick. I want to give him a shout out. I'm gonna throw his Instagram up on the bottom too. It's Ink from the Valley on Instagram. All right, this guy has timeless. He has a studio in Kerrville. And it's awesome, man. He has a barber shop, a tattoo shop. He's gonna do some ink for me too. I'm really excited about it. But I wanted to give him a shout out because he always gets me looking fresh before I come on. And I'm telling you, this guy's awesome. And that's his Instagram. If you want to hit him up for an appointment or anything, you can always click on that. So that was good. Also, I wanted to talk about this weekend. It was an amazing weekend, and it's also going to tie into the God's timing thing. One thing that happened to me this weekend was I got to go home, right? And I got to be with my daughter. I also got to go to this amazing fitness, rehab, and wellness center in Westlake. It was called Wired ATX. It was, if y'all were on the show and watched Christina last week, she's a part of this, and the guy's name is Chris. They invited me to come up there, and they basically pampered me for an hour and hooked me up to this amazing machines that actually check out my muscles and how they're working. and it's good for recovery. I've had a couple of shoulder injuries that I've had surgery on, and I can't explain to you how amazing it was. There's his information on Instagram as far as Wired ATX goes. Guys, hit him a follow. It's just super amazing experience to go there. I feel so good, like my body does. I had shingles, everybody kind of knows I've been struggling with that, the nerve damage. They put this thing around my neck, and I'm telling you, I slept so good last night. It was amazing, the sleep that I got. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I'm sure it did, because I usually wake up several times during the night, and my ADD brain has trouble going to sleep. But it was absolutely amazing experience. And I really appreciate them allowing me to come over, check out the facility, check out what they do for the fitness industry. And it was just an absolute amazing experience. And I hope that in the future, I'm going to try to schedule some more sessions with them, because today's gym session that I had was absolutely amazing. I was able to do some exercises I haven't been able to do in years, and it was awesome. And I really appreciate you, Chris and Christina, for setting that up, and Zane for all the information you gave me. I really appreciate it. It was an awesome experience. Also, we have some good, exciting news to bring about people coming on the show, future guests. If you saw my Facebook, you obviously saw that Jonathan, man, this guy, he's an actor, producer. He's got several albums out. He was on The Voice, Team Christina, season 2, right? And he was a finalist on American Idol. I mean, the guy has come from a crazy background, from Brazil, poverty, to come over here. And I mean, this guy is an amazing father, a great husband, and any kind of obstacle that has came his way, he not only overcomes it, but he embraces it. And he says, bring it on, And I'm so excited to have this guy. We'll try to get a video of his up here. It's featuring Doughman. It's On and On. And you can follow Jonathan on YouTube, Instagram, and all that. He's just an amazing guy, and I can't wait to bring him on the show. So that's some absolute amazing news that we got to bring. But Jonathan, you can check out his video. I guess we are having a little trouble bringing it on, but you can get that. Also, I just wanted to talk about one other thing, which kind of ties into today's episode. So when I was 13 years old, I was playing baseball. Obviously, all growing up, I played baseball. And one season, there was one off season, I did not play baseball with the guys I usually play baseball from or with. I was gonna play soccer that summer. I was pretty good at soccer too, and something happened, and I didn't end up getting wasn't able to play. I had signed up too late for the soccer team, so I wanted to go back to AABC. That's what we called it in Round Rock, but I had it was too late, and I couldn't get on with the squad. So another team wanted to pick me up, and these back then it was select baseball, and it's a travel team is what they call it. And on this travel team, I was going to be playing with guys that I normally don't play with. And I didn't know anybody. They went to other schools, and this is right when I became a freshman in high school, or about to be a freshman in high school. So I didn't really know these guys yet, but so I ended up playing on this team, and it was called the Mavericks. And it was a great experience, but it was kind of sad for me. And I was that I wasn't going to be able to play with the guys I usually play with, and it was a scary thing. But one of the guys that I played with on this team, his name was Cameron Davies, and it kind of ties into the God's timing thing and how things work full circle. So Cameron and I played the same position at the time, second base, and I guess you can say we were kind of rivals because we both were trying out for the spot. And anyway, we became friends. Obviously, we played on the same team. We fought together. We won together, that kind of thing. And then we went to separate schools and we split away, just as people do. Um, and I didn't really talk to the guy for 20, 25 years, maybe. And then he became one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. The guy is an amazing friend, and I look up to this guy so much. His name is Cameron Davies, and he is the CEO of Cruising Kitchens. Well, I had a podcast seminar, I guess you can say, that I went to, and in this podcast seminar, they had they talk to you about just getting started and how to do it, and they told me to make a list of 10 people that I would love to bring onto the show, and whether it's people that I feel like would never come on the show, being like number one, or the hardest, to number 10 being maybe I'd have a shot if I could just get my name out there, get the show out there, and with God's help. Cameron was one of the guys that I wanted to, it's been a goal of mine, just, in the future, to have on the show. And like I said, this guy's the owner of Cruising Kitchens. He owns Davies Entertainment. He promotes boxing. He has a compound in San Antonio. And he also has an apparel company, Sober Society Apparel. I mean, the guy's he does a lot of things for the community. Anyway, he saw the podcast with Christina and he made a comment on it. And I had said, hey man, we got to get you on the show, big dog, and he said, it, brother. And so I'm going to hopefully be praying and talking to him and get him on the podcast, because the guy's just an awesome dude. And that's what this show is about. People like Jonathan and people like Cameron, who just do everything they can and do God's work, man. And that's what the show's about, and like I said, you don't necessarily have to be an addict or come from an addictive background like me, but I was praying this week about, what to talk about today going solo, and God laid something on my heart. I was at the gym and I was listening to this podcast. Well, it's an app, and it's called Boost Radio. It's an inspirational app that has like Christian hip hop and all this. And on the app, he said, something about, what the last thing that grow on a fruit tree? It's the fruit. And I was like, yeah. And I started thinking about it, and it just hit me. It was like my heart started beating really fast. It was like, this is what God wants me to talk about. Patience in his timing, just like fruit on a tree. It takes a while to grow and go into fruition, right? Especially with people like me coming from an addictive background, addictive behavior. All I want, and I'm used to, is instant gratification, right? I want things to happen right away. If they don't happen the way that I want them to happen, I get upset. And I've been struggling with a certain all these blessings happening since I got out of prison, right? And I've been struggling with one thing, okay? And I'm not going to go into detail because it's a little personal, but like I've been struggling with something, and I've been wanting to fix it myself. And it's like, when I try to hang on to something, it never seems to work out for me when I try to fix it on my own. And if it does get fixed the way that I wanted it to, something later happens and it's like, man, I should have just waited, and so I'm in a position right now where I probably need to hear this too, because when I'm in possession of something and I try, but it's my problem, right? But if I give it to God and it's his possession, it's no longer my problem. It's his problem. And I hope that makes sense, because and that's hard to do, because like I said, you want to fix something so fast and so quick, especially when they're coming from being an addict and in recovery. I've lost everything a million times. Okay. and it's almost like I'm in fear of success but that's just the enemy talking. The enemy's telling me, hey, it's just a matter of time before you're going to fall again. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen this time. And I've said that before. And it's like, and it's almost like he comes at me and makes me feel like I'm not worthy, that God is not using me, that I'm doing this. And it's not even about that. It's about the struggles and embracing those struggles and using those to show people that you can come back from anything at any time. And as long as you got God on your side, some things may not happen right away. Abraham and Sarah waiting for God's promise. I mean, Joseph's journey of betrayal to leadership. Look at Moses. Moses wanted to give up a lot of times. I mean, God chose him, and yet he's sitting here in doubt saying, what if they don't believe me, God? And God sat there and said to him with a question, replied to him, he said, what's in your hand? And David's like, Moses like, and the reason God said that is because he wanted him to focus on what was in his hand, right? Not all this other stuff and creating scenarios in his brain that haven't even happened yet. God wanted him. Moses tried to take on too much. God had one thing he wanted him to do, right? Lead the people. And that's all he had to do. And he started thinking he wasn't worthy either. And that's just how the enemy works, right? He comes at you in a million ways, especially when you're trying to do God's work. He will sneak up on you and he will try to come at me in ways like that I don't even see it happening when it's happening. And that's how sneaky the guy is. He's a liar, he's a thief, and all he wants to see. Okay, so he's gonna take what you value the most. Okay, and what do think about that for a second. What do you value the most? Okay, and I would like to say, right now, what I value the most is my relationship with God. And that means that he's going to try to break that relationship down. He doesn't want me to have it. So how does he break that down? He wants to take away my faith, right? And when you're working with God's timing, it's basically having faith. It's faith in the wait, right? So how do we have that faith in God? How do we just let it go and let him take control? That's the difficult part, because like we're human, all we want to do is control things. And I'm telling you, since I have changed my perception on the God thing, okay? I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for God. And all these things that have happened in my life are happening because I'm doing it for him, not for me. I try, okay, for instance, before I went to prison, I was in talks about writing a book, okay? And I did write the book. I wrote it and it wasn't God's timing yet, okay? I had talks with publishing companies. I actually had it written out, and I was doing this for the wrong reasons. I mean, I wanted to help people, obviously, but it got to the point where it was, oh, look what I'm doing. And instead of look what God's doing through me, right? And it wasn't God's timing yet on this book, okay? I had another chapter to put in this book that God wanted me to write, and I didn't know it at the time, but it's happened and it's happening. And now I wasn't even looking for it. I'm already getting hit up by several different publishing companies now to complete the book. And so I'm going to add this chapter. I'm going to add the prison chapter. I'm going to add everything that's happened since I went to prison, and was able to finish the book before. But since I have went, and the things that happened to me in there, and the things that have happened to me since I've gotten out, and the way that God has worked in my life. And another thing I wanted to share with you that has to do with the God's timing thing is the enemy's playing with me, and like I said, he kind of sneaks up on you. And so there's been some doubt going on in my head, even though all these good things are or God's been blessing my life with the job and with the podcast and doing his work and just being happy, joyous and free and sober and not having to worry about or have the mental obsession to use drugs and alcohol, all these things that are going on that are great. And I still have this doubt in my brain, like I don't want to call it lack of faith because I know what God can do, but it's just him trying to sneak in and tell me I'm not worthy of this. Well, something happened to me this morning. I mean, not this morning, Saturday morning. I had to go to Austin, obviously. Like I told you, I got to spend time with my daughter and take her shopping. But before all that, and before I went to Wired ATX, I had to get there a little early. Transportation stuff, like the way that I had to get there and the way that I had to get there extremely early before I had to go to Wired. So I get to the ex-wife's house, my daughter's still sleeping, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna run across the street to my favorite breakfast place. I'm gonna get something to eat. And my ex-wife's like, yeah, absolutely, and I got them some breakfast. I went over there, and I always sit at the bar, right? That's when I'm by myself. I used to go eat there before I would go work out. And so, and I always see somebody there that I know, especially since the podcast's been going on, because the People Around Rock webpage, I'm involved in that webpage and I promote the show on that webpage. So a lot of people, recognize me from that page. So I get there and I see one spot open at the bar. And so I go sit down and of course I know all the people that work there too. So they're like, what's up, man? How's it going? And I'm like, man, life is great, and yet I got this little doubt in the back of my head, like, I'm excited about the weekend, obviously, but just with the podcast and everything going on, I'm thinking, the enemy's been playing with me like, hey, you're not worthy of this. You don't have enough time sober. You don't have enough this and that. And he's just like playing with my brain. So I've been praying about it, and I'm sitting at the bar, and the guy next to me, I don't know him. He doesn't know me. We kind of bumped knees, right? And he's like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to touch you. It's not like he was laughing. I was laughing. I said, no, man. He looks at me and he says, hey, are you a bodybuilder? And I don't think he said it because of the way I look. I think he said it because I had a First Form shirt on, but anyway, I was like, well, actually, I do lift a lot, and I'm into the physique side, not the bodybuilding side. But he's like, yeah, man, I was a ball player. And I said, well, yeah, you kind of look like one. And he goes, were you born and raised in Round Rock? I said, absolutely. Since 1980. And he said, me too, since 1975 or 4. And I was like, huh. Well, I know everybody that plays baseball in Round Rock are pretty much in that time frame. So I was looking at the guy thinking, man, I don't recognize him, but it was all right. And I found out why later, because he went to another high school in another city that was nearby, but he did live in Round Rock. And anyway, we started talking, and he was an ex-baseball player. He played it for the San Diego Padres, and we started chatting. Come to find out, the guy and I had the most amazing conversation. In fact, I bought him breakfast because he's like a motivational speaker now. When I started telling him my background, he was like, dude, like, this is crazy that we're even sitting next to each other having this conversation. And I was like, absolutely. Well, I bought him breakfast. We exchanged Instagram. He's been following me ever since the last few days. He's probably listening right now. But right after I get up to leave, this lady's there, and she stops me and she says, hey, and this happens quite a bit at Cafe Java, because like I said, people recognize me from the podcast and from the People Round Rock website. And she says, hey, you're that Addict-to-Athlete guy, right? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, I got to tell you something, man. My son, he's 36 years old, been in and out of jail, and he struggles with addiction. And he's been struggling he's living back at my house. And I had him start following you a few months ago. And I got to tell you, he's still struggling, but he's got some hope because of your show. And I walked in the other day and he was listening to a rerun of one of your podcasts, and I just started crying because I feel like he's got something to look up to right now. And it made me start crying. I was like, the devil's trying to come at me in one side saying I'm not worthy, and yet I'm over here hearing it from somebody else that God's using me to be an inspiration for somebody. And like I said, where there's lovers, there's going to be haters, right? And especially when it comes from the enemy, you have to keep your brain, you have to, you know, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but transformed by the renewings of your mind. Okay. And that's Romans 12 too. And he says that because when you get caught up in worldly things, the enemy is going to come at you like that. That's how he comes at you, with worldly things and possessions. And if I start letting the things define me, like how much money I make or what kind of car I drive. I don't even drive a car right now. I don't even have it. I own one, but I'm letting someone else drive it right now. Like, I don't need that to make me happy. Okay. Not anymore. And I need to let God define me. Right. And I don't need these other things defining me. And I've realized this, and this is what's different about it this time, is I'm not letting those things determine my next decision on what I do. Okay. Yes, I want to make money. I'd be a liar if I told you I didn't, but that's not why I'm doing this. Okay. This has nothing to do with that. This is about spreading God's love and hope and showing people that you can come back from anything no matter what. Okay. And that I struggle just like everybody else. Okay. Just because good things are happening doesn't mean I'm not struggling with things. And that's what the show, I told you I was going to be honest about it. And I told you that that's what we're doing this together. We're in this together. And that's what the show's about, you know? And so having faith in God's timing and embracing it, it's extremely difficult to do. It's one of the hardest things to do, especially when you want to be in control of everything. How do you do that? You know, how do you let go and let God? And like I said, I struggle with it all the time, and it's been a struggle of mine. And I'll tell you another thing that's been a struggle of mine: complacency. I get comfortable, and that's one of the biggest things for me is time management. I get comfortable, things are going great, I get my job back, all this good stuff's happening, and I stop praising God's name. I stopped praying. I stopped spending time with God, the only thing that's ever gotten me out of a mess, and I stopped going to it. And that's why I always say, for me, it's easy for me to go to God when my life is in shambles and I'm like, you know, I have nowhere else to turn but you, God. And you know what? Like I say, and I love to say this phrase, sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to realize God's the rock at the bottom, but it doesn't have to be that way for you to realize that he's always there. You just got to turn around and say, hey, I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of this roller coaster ride. I'm tired of the people hurting the people that love me. I'm tired of not being able to be there for my son when he graduates high school. Speaking of, he just said, hey, Cooper, I love you too, bud. And I miss you. And I'm so happy you're tuned in. And Jaime, thank you for your support. I really appreciate your comments too. And guys, you got comments, you got questions. We're here together, man. This is all about us defeating the enemy here, praising God's name and glorifying him, because that's what this is about. Okay. And I like I said, I'm tired of hurting people that love me. My parents, okay. God bless their soul. They're such amazing people. I would hate to say that they're enablers in my past addiction, but I have kids. And so I got to spend it with my daughter this weekend, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm reflecting on what I did to my parents. And I'm like, if this girl, and she's my kids are amazing. Right. First of all, my son is killing it. My daughter is just an awesome person. She has a great personality, and she's got an amazing mother. Okay. So I don't foresee her doing anything like I did. But what I'm saying is, if she were to do something like that, it would be difficult for me to say, I can't help you no more. You know what I mean? And my parents constantly helped me because they didn't want to see me on the street living homeless. They didn't want to see me dead. They 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 constantly helped me when I had nowhere to go. And that's because they love me. And that's the way our Father loves us, you know? It's a unconditional love, and he died for us, you know? I mean, he took all this pain away from us for a reason. That's the whole reason he was here to begin with. Even the disciples had no they were surprised, but he wasn't. He knew that's his purpose on this earth. And and my parents, you know, I was reflecting, you know, with my kids, like, man, I didn't get to be there, you know, because of my struggles, because the enemy had grasped me and pulled me away from what God wanted me to do, and I took it, and I wanted that instant gratification. You know, my parents had to find. I was killing them, and they finally had to say, hey, you know what? Like, I can't do this anymore. And it took that for me to be homeless, for that me being homeless, for me to see that I was going to die. And this is after I had liver and kidney failure. This is after I had cancer. This is after I had cancer again. Uh, I knew I was going to die. And that's what it took for me, for my parents doing that. The hardest thing they've ever had to do, it took that for me to realize I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to hurt nobody else, you know? I don't want to hurt my parents. My parents are elderly, and they're probably, you know, I want them to see me be successful in God's name before they pass away, God forbid. That's what I want. I put them through so much stuff. And so the enemy comes at me and tries to tell me all these things that are going on in my head about my parents, my relationship with them, that I'm just gonna hurt them again. And I can't listen to that stuff. I have to be strong in prayer constantly, and I have to maintain this close relationship with God. It grows every day. It's something. I talked to him today. I took a bike ride today. I spent, I don't know, 45 minutes on a bike today, just riding around Kerrville, beautiful hill country, listening to the birds. I mean, the clouds went away. It was like, as soon as I started riding the bike, it was like, you know, and it was just amazing experience. And I talked to God the whole time. And I was just like, man, you know, I'm loving life right now. I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm free. I'm glad I'm able to live for you. And it was and I reflected on what I was able to do with my daughter this weekend. I haven't been able to do that for her in years. And I told my ex-wife this morning, you know, I'm so grateful that she has such an amazing mom, you know, that I don't have to worry all the times that I have fallen and had to concentrate on myself, not having to worry about my kids. They both have amazing moms, okay? Not having to worry about them while I'm worried about going through the struggles that I have gone through. It has helped me rebound so fast. So I owe a lot to God for giving, you know, for putting those kind of people in my life for my kids, to allow me to step back, concentrate on my relationship with God and on myself, and bounce back so quickly, because I didn't have to worry about my kids. They had amazing parents. And, you know, and so I told my ex-wife this morning, I said, you know, I really appreciate everything that you have done for me, the support you've given me. We're like best friends, you know. And she said, well, you know, that girl adores you, Alan. She adores the shit out of you and thinks you're just she doesn't care about all that stuff. She just want she loves being able to be with you and see you be present. And I mean, we're like best friends when we're together. I even say that to her. I say, who's my pretty girl? And she's like, me. And I'm like, who's my best friend? And she's like, me. And it's just, I was thanking God on that bike ride. Like, thank you for I was in prison this time last year, man. Like, not knowing when I was going to get out. And I'm sitting here able to go take my kid on a shopping spree for the first time in years. Go get pampered at a fitness, wellness, and rehab place, and just got to feel blessed and maintain focus and not get complacent with the way things go, and it's just it's been really hard to not fear the success, because whenever I've had it in the past, I've lost it at some point. But that's just the enemy telling me that, right? God has different plans, He had this plan the whole time. If I hadn't had that one situation when I was 13 years old, I would have never have met Cameron. And I can see all this full circle. If I had never made some of those stupid, bad decisions that were self-inflicted on, that I caused myself, I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you guys. So you have to sit there and think about this full circle. And sometimes God's plan, you just got to trust it. And you got to say, okay, God, this is going to be all you. I'm going to put this in your hands. I'm going to live for today. I'm not going to future trip about what hasn't happened or hasn't occurred, like Moses, right? Like, hey, what if they don't believe me? Look at what's in your hand. Look at what's in your hand. Focus on what's today, right? When you start thinking about all this stuff in the future, it's just going to cause anxiety. Give it to God. Let him just live. Just like a lot of people say in a 12-step program, one day at a time, right? That's why they say that, because when you start thinking about the future, it causes anxiety for us, and it causes us to start creating these scenarios in our head that haven't occurred, may not ever occur, but we just sit there and just create all these things, especially when I'm laying in bed and stuff is calm, my brain is just going a million miles an hour, and I start thinking, and I got to sit there. And sometimes, and I know other people do this because people have told me this too. When I say a prayer, it's like reading a book for me. When I open a book or when I pray at night, sometimes I'm praying, right? And I'm talking to God and I'm doing my thing. And all of a sudden I start thinking about what I'm praying about. And then the next thing I know, I forget I'm even praying. And I feel like I disrespected God. So I'm like, oh my God, and I go back. It's just like when I read a book. I read a page and I'm starting to think about something that not even what I'm reading, or maybe it's about what I'm reading, but I forget what I just wrote or read. And I have to go back and reread it. In a way, that's kind of how the enemy works, right? He takes our focus away. He doesn't want us praying to God. He doesn't want that relationship. Why? Because that's what he knows is of most value. And that's what I was saying. He's going to come at you and try to devalue what you value the most. And anyway, so I wanted to talk about that today. God's timing and embracing it and having faith in waiting. Because if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be sitting right here on a podcast talking to you guys, I'd be still writing at Collision Estimates, working for a corporate company after I had been to prison, after I had almost died from liver and kidney failure. I couldn't have made any of that up. It's one of those things that I got. God's plan maybe weren't exactly those bad things that went down with me, but everything that's happened where in the restructuring of that course was all God. And and he gave us will, right, to make our own decisions. And sometimes we don't make the right decisions. And that goes back to, before I conclude, that goes back to, if you're having struggle, okay, with God's timing, or handing over something to God, or allowing him to take control of the situation, and you sit back and give everything to him, do some meditation, do some pray about it, right? When in doubt, pray. And you may not get the answer right away. It may come to you in 3 weeks. It may come to you in 3 days. It may come to you in 3 minutes. Who knows? But faith is where everything comes into play. And if you've got faith in God, everything's going to work out, man. Everything is going to work out according to his plan, right? For I have plans for you, he said. Plans for you to prosper, plans for you to grow. And just like he said, don't get caught up in the worldly things. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. My mind is my worst enemy. Okay, because Satan comes at me in my brain and he tries to tell me all these things that aren't true or haven't happened yet. And only God can help with those mental defenses, right? I have to have the armor of God. And that's the only way you can battle these things. So if you're having trouble with faith, maybe start with something small, like, God, I need help believing and trusting in you 100%. I need help with willingness. Just to start with something small. And that's, I don't pray for me anymore. Unless it's like before I come on a show and I want to get me out of the way, and I want to bring God into the situation. I want him to take over, and I want him to use me as a vessel. I'll pray for that. But or, hey, keep giving me the willingness to do what I'm doing. Something small like that. But I don't pray for material things or anything like that, because that's not what this is about. And I've noticed since I've been praying differently, and my prayer game has stepped up, my meditation game has stepped up, my ADD hasn't been as bad, I haven't been as stressed, my anxiety is way better. I mean, and it's just been an awesome experience to be able to grow this relationship with God every day. So I just wanted to let everybody know that just God's perfect timing is worth the wait, if you can have the faith to wait for it. All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody joining us tonight. I'll be making some the announcements when Jonathan will be coming on. I also got some awesome people locally that are going to be coming on the show soon too. We got some amazing guests lined up. It's going to be awesome. And I really appreciate everybody's time tonight. Remember, think about the things you do have and not the things you don't. And thank God for the things that you do have. All right. So, Addict-to-Athlete Podcast, thank you for listening. Alan Deal Jr. signing off from Kerrville, Texas. Love you, each and every one of you. God bless.